said as long as it's this the match, I'll like the match.
Oh, happy to do that. Yeah. Okay.
Should we just start at the end?
Yeah. You good?
Yes.
Good. Yeah, there you go.
There we go. Here's how good it is to sit here together. It's really wonderful to be here this Shabbat. It's been wonderful to be here this entire year. And I'm really glad to see all of you here. It's wonderful to see, but there are a lot of people who I usually only see as little boxes on Zoom screens on Friday nights, and it's just so wonderful to see you in person tonight.
So,
We should be light candles.
yeah. So I'm going to invite up Beth Schreiber to light for us.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher kedeshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lahalikneh shel Shabbat.
Amen. Thank you.
Beth. Beautiful. So, as has become our custom on these Friday Night Lives, we're doing a bit of a twist on the blessings that we give to ourselves and our loved ones. We're going to use Ilana Arian's song Ken Yehi Ratzon, which blends this blessing to ourselves, our loved ones, and our whole community together. So we're going to start by blessing ourselves.
May I be safe. May I be safe. May I be free. May I be free. May I find space. May I find space. Space to just speak. Ken Yehi Ratzon. Ken Yehi Ratzon. Ken Yehi Ratzon.
lovingly at each other. If your loved ones are far away, you can hold them in your hearts. May you be safe.
May you be safe. May you be free. May you be free. May you find space. May you find space. Space to just be. Space to just be. Kenny Ratson. Kenny Ratson. May you find your way back home. Kenny Ratson. Kenny Ratson. May you find your way back home.
And now, I'm going to invite you to look around the room and see the whole community that is here, welcoming Shabbat together. May we be safe.
May we be safe. May we be free. May we be free. May we find space. May we find space. Space to just be. Space to just be. Kenny Ratson. Kenny Ratson. May we find our way back home. Kenny Ratson. Kenny Ratson. May we find our way back
And now, if you have a Siddur, please turn to page 10 for Yedid Nefesh.
We'll do the first and last of the verses. Yedid nefesh avarachama mishochtach eretz zona yarum page 11. Lechu neranena. Let's go sing. There's a practice in Jewish prayer very often in prayers and in psalms to do the first few lines out loud and then to read the rest, read less silently, and then the last few out loud. And what happens in that silence, presumably it's you read the rest of the psalm to yourself. But sometimes that's not what happens, right? Sometimes what happens is the mind wanders. I had a philosophy teacher who used to say, if you're staring out the window during philosophy class, you're cheating. If your mind is wandering during prayer, like during meditation, that's what it's supposed to do. And it's the bringing it back and noticing where it went that is the practice of prayer. That is the meditative practice. It's the same thing that sometimes happens, like we were just saying that Yadidai tune. We could be thinking about what notes are there, and that's like thinking about what the words are, and that can be an interesting practice. There's something going on in the background there. Or we could be having that same practice of the mind sort of goes where it goes and comes back. So that's what we do in the middle, and with this tune that I've been using for the Chuneranena, we sort of get both in the middle because we sing in Nigun, and those of us who want to read the prayer in Hebrew, the psalm in Hebrew can do that. Those of us who want to read the psalm in English can do that, and those of us who just want to sit in the Nigun can do that, and those of us who just want to sit and let the mind do what the mind does when in prayer. That's what we do. Page 11. Lechu neranena l'Adonai Nariya letzuri sheinu lekadma fanav betoda mizmirot nariya lo Page 13 is our second psalm. Sing to Adonai a new song. There might have been a day, there must have been a day where this was a new song. The challenge for us, of course, is to make the song somehow new. The day is a new day. It's going to have to be new. This song has never been sung just like this, ever before, just right now. This moment, as we approach Shabbat, sing to God a new song. Shiru l'Adonai, shir chadash, shiru l'Adonai kol haaretz, shiru l'Adonai, barechu shemo, basru miyom leyom yeshuato, sapru v'goyim kevodo, bechol ha'amim nifleotav, ki gadol Adonai, u'molal me'od, norahu.
page 17, there's a beautiful reading in the margin at the top. Usually we do the one on the bottom, but this felt appropriate for tonight. When we sing the words of a prayer, we are actually expressing ourselves in two languages simultaneously. One of words with limits and definitions, and one decidedly limitless with an immense power of its own. Alone, music can affect us emotionally, changing our happiness to introspection or our sorrow to joy. It also affects us physically. It actually raises or lowers our breath and heart rate. So it is only natural that music would be a necessary tool to communicate with God, who addresses and moves us in ways both articulable and indefinable, and who is limited in the imagination of our minds, but limitless as the object of the longing of our hearts.
On page 18, the third line, Zamru l'Adonai bechino. We don't really know what the chino was. It was an instrument. We know that, or we understand that to be. In modern Hebrew, it's a violin, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't that in biblical times. Sentiment. In the transliteration, you can find it as a second line in the red. Zamru l'Adonai bechino, bechino v'kol zimra. Zamru l'Adonai bechino.
So on page 20, we have Romamu, which we sing every week, exalt God and bow down at God's holy mountain. What's interesting is that the verb is in the plural. It's telling a bunch of people to come to God's mountain and bow down, but it's such an intimate thing, coming to God's mountain. So we're all in this room together, we're all taking our own journeys to the same mountain, but we're each taking our own routes there. So we join together in song on our own journeys. Romamu at the Carrot on page 20.
Adonai Eloheinu Romemu.
Are we ready to welcome in Shabbat? Have we made that transition from the cares of the week? Page 23. We're going to do the first two verses on page 23 to one melody, then we'll turn a couple pages and we'll do the last two verses to another one. Lecha dodi lekrat kalai, alalai, 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 Shabbat nikabela. Lecha dodi lekrat kalai, alalai, 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 Shabbat nikabela. Shamor vezachor betibor echad, ish v'yanu elam yuchad, Adonai echad, u'shmo echad, v'shemo tiferet, ve'elitila. Lecha dodi lekrat kalai, alalai, 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 Shabbat nikabela. Lecha dodi lekrat kalai, alalai, 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 Shabbat nikabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nilcha, ki mekor haberacha, nerosh mikedem nesucha, sof maseh b'machshavat tila. Lecha dodi lekrat kalai, alalai, 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 Shabbat nikabela. Lecha dodi lekrat kalai, alalai, 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 Shabbat nikabela. Page 25. Yaminu smol tifrotzi, vet Adonai tarisi, ayadish ben patzi, ben ismecha v'nagila, olecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Please rise as you are able, face the entrance. Boi v'shalom, ateret bala, gam lesimcha u'etzolam, toch emunei am segula, boi chala, olecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Be seated. Shabbat is here. Let's sing a song for Shabbat. Page 27. Mizmor shir leyom I'd like to invite mourners, those observing a yard site, the anniversary of a death, or those whose practice it is to rise and recite Mourner's Kaddish to please now rise. Page 30, Mourner's Kaddish. Yit gadal v'yit kadash shemei rabba.
Amen.
Ve'alma divra chirute ve'yamlich malchute. Bechayechon uvyomechon uvchayei dechol bet Yisrael. Ba'agala uvizman kari ve'imru.
Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevorach Leolam Umeo Maya.
Yitbarach ve'yishtabach ve'yitpa'ar ve'yitromam ve'yitnaseh. Ve'yithadar ve'yit'aleh ve'yithalal shmei tikudesha.
Brichu.
Le'ela min kol birchata ve'shirata. Tushbechata ve'nechemata. Da'amiran be'alma ve'imru.
Amen.
Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya. Ve'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru.
Amen.
Oseh shalom bimromam. U'ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru.
Amen.
You may be seated. I'd like to thank you all for being here, and I want to thank my partner, Rabbi Feld. I think that throughout this year, in a sense, we've been sharing a position. So very often you would see either one of us or the other. And I don't think you know quite how much behind the scenes we've been working as a team this entire year, and I just could not have possibly wished for a better teammate and partner in this project. So, the Parsha today, it's double Parsha, and there's a whole lot of material in it. But I want to focus on one detail here. It's probably the most famous detail from this double Parsha, from Parashat Balak. And it's this story of this very curious person by the name of Balaam, son of Beor. And what's curious about Balaam is that he's not an Israelite. He doesn't even live anywhere near the action. And yet he seems to have a relationship with the same God as the Israelites. He has a relationship with our God. How does this work? You probably know the story, but just so we're on the same page, close to 40 years have passed in the desert. We just breezed over that detail. And now the Israelites are finally leaving the wilderness and heading towards the promised land. To get there, they have to go through various inhabitant lands, right? So the advantage of the wilderness is that you're not on anybody's land because it's the wilderness. But to get to the promised land, they have to go through some people's lands, and they often they send messages, say, can you let us come through? We're not going to touch anything. We just want to pass through. And people are like, I don't want to let an army through my land. Are you kidding? And so they have been defeating people as they go. And this Edomite king Balak sees them coming and decides that the way he's going to deal with this problem is to get them cursed. So he sends out for the best curser that he knows of, is this fellow Balaam, who lives by the river, possibly the Euphrates. That's quite a trip. And he says to him, for I know that whom you bless is blessed indeed, and he whom you curse is cursed. Balaam seems to want to take the job, but he tells Balak's messengers it isn't up to him. He has to ask permission of Yud-Heh Vav-Heh, who is the source of his blessing and his curses. Now, of course, God says, no, you can't curse those people, they are blessed. And there's a great back and forth that involves talking donkey. But one way, eventually, Balaam gets to go, but God makes it very clear to Balaam, and Balaam makes it very clear to Balak's messengers, I can only say what God tells me to say. And of course, when he sees the tents of the people of Israel, what he says includes the lines, "How lovely are your tents, O Jacob, your dwelling places, Israel. Ma tovu elecha Yaakov." And isn't it interesting that we have a prayer by a non-Jewish prophet, the beginning of our morning prayers? That we define ourselves, we define our home by these words that came from the mouth of a non-Jewish prophet. There's something else intriguing. This is not the only non-Jewish prophet in the Torah, and it's even not the only words of a non-Jewish prophet that make it into our liturgy. In Parshat Lech Lecha, in Genesis, Abraham, then still Avram, meets Melchizedek, who is the king of Shalem. Possibly that's Jerusalem. And Melchizedek is a Kohen le'el Elyon. He is a priest of El on high. And he says to Avram, he blesses him, he says, "Blessed is Avram to El Elyon, creator of heaven and earth." And that phrase, El Elyon, Koneh Shamayim Va'aretz, right, which we are going to recite in just a little bit when we get to our Amidah. And that also comes from a non-Jewish source. So what's the takeaway from this? There are a few ways we could approach it. It's really fascinating. Balaam ben Beor's name actually appears in a non-Jewish source. It was found in an inscription in an archaeological dig in Jordan, in which he plays a crucial role in a power struggle between the gods. Right? And El, by the way, is a name for Canaanite, also both a god in general and a Canaanite god in particular. So we could get into a fascinating conversation about how the ancient Israelite monotheism seems to have evolved out of Canaanite pantheons. That's one way we could approach it. Another way we could do is we could look at the Midrashic tradition, where there's a lot of ambivalence about Balaam. Some sources treat him as a true prophet. An awful lot of sources go out of their way to talk about how evil and terrible he was. That would also be interesting. But to me, the most fascinating implication of these non-Jewish prophets in our tradition is that maybe, just maybe, our tradition isn't the only true tradition out there. And maybe this is something that the original sources of the Torah even took for granted on some level. Maybe we're not quite as special as we like to think about it. We're special, right? God tells Balaam, you have to bless them. They are special. But God still talks to Balaam, right? What happens, though, if we take it to now and we contemplate this possibility that our tradition doesn't have a monopoly on spiritual truth with a capital T? I think this is the challenge that Balaam, son of Beor, presents to us. Now, I've met Jews who hold on to the idea that Jews have a special privileged relationship with the creator of the universe. And Jews within the circles of conservative congregations. And maybe that's something that some of us have in our emotional sense of God. But I think that sort of thing also, often in the same person, I think it makes a lot of us uncomfortable. And I definitely know it makes me uncomfortable. And there's a particular place in the liturgy where it makes me uncomfortable, pretty much whenever we reach it, though I'll get to you the solution. Let's look at page 56 in our prayer book. 56. And a lot of you probably have this memorized, right? It's the Aleinu. And the third line of the Aleinu says, Shelo asanu kegoyei ha'aratzot, velo samanu kemishpachot ha'adama, who has not made us merely a nation, nor formed us as all earthly families. Right? That is the best the translation could do to stay true to the text and give us a way of understanding this notion. Anybody know the word lo, lamed aleph, right? You see the third and the fourth line. One says she lo, and the other one's ve lo. She lo, that not, and ve lo, that and not, and didn't, right? It's a negative word, right? Now there's a solution. I'm going to let you in. You're going to hear me lead Aleinu for, I guess, the last time in the current plants. And I'm going to let you in on a secret about how I deal with this when I recite it, because it sounds like I'm reciting this, but I'm not. I'm using a solution by Rabbi Zalman Schachter Shalomi. Do people know who he was? He's the founder of the Renewal Movement. He writes this, he spells it differently. Lo, instead of lamed aleph, he writes lo lamed vav. Can somebody say what lo lamed vav means? Does anybody know? To him or for him. So instead of who has not made us like all the nations, Zalman Schachter Shalomi says, who has made us, Davka, who has made us like all the nations for his sake. And for his sake has placed our goral, our lot in life, with all of the rest of them. And if you think about the place we are in the world today, this is a very important thing. We're not in Bronze Age where we are a tribe and there are tribes around us and we have to somehow find our way to survive. We are in a global world, and if each country sees itself as privileged over all the other ones competing for the same resources, well, the resources are finite. We now know this. And we know that our fate is entwined with everyone else. And Zalman Schachter Shalomi wasn't coming and say, like, oh, what do I do with this text? Oh, I've got this trick. This was his theology. His theology was, he said, think about the nations of the world, the different peoples of the world, as organs in a body, as cells in an organism. It is crucial that each one of them do its job well. If your liver doesn't work, that's a problem, right? If the Jews aren't Jewing right, and the Buddhists aren't Buddhisting right, maybe we're not going to manage to have that goral, that fate work out right. We need to find each one to play our role within the organism. So when I say, Shelo asanu kigoyei aratzot, I say, this is the way we were created. We are created like all the other peoples in all the other lands. So we are special. We're just not more special than anybody else. So I have a small postscript. I couldn't help it. If I had next year to give another drush on Balaam, maybe I could have left it there. But there was something else that I noticed when Rabbi Feld and I were discussing. So we do this thing like, oh, I'm going to teach about this, and oh, I'll teach about that, so we're not stepping on each other's toes. And I was thinking, when Balaam comes to curse the Israelite camp and blesses them instead, what made that happen? And the story says God told him, but how is it? Where does he get that inspiration from? And I think he actually looked at them, right? That when God says, if you think about the voice of God, for instance, the still small voice, that kind of sound that all of us know how to hear, right? How do you get so that you can hear it? He sees the community that's there, not the community that his preconceived notion. And one could have expected him to see this community through Balak's eyes, right? Through his employer's eyes, as a menace, as a challenge. But he saw how lovely their homes are because he didn't come with a preconceived notion. And I think that's another lesson we can take from Balaam. Whether we come to curse a community or to join them, or to serve them, or to interact them with some other way. Our challenge is to see them as they are and to remain open to that still small voice that can speak to us of their beauty. And the reason I felt I needed to share that today is that I certainly have found lovely homes here in Canton. I didn't know what I was going to find, and I'm very grateful for that experience. So with that in mind, let's return to our prayers. Page 39A. But before we actually say our Baruch, those of you who came on Zoom before I found out that my guitar was killing the Zoom wasn't playing nice with my guitar. Let's put it that way. I was using this little introduction to the Baruch.
Baruch Hu,
Dear one,
dear one,
Shekhinah,
Shekhinah,
holy name.
holy name.
When I call on the
light of my soul, I come home.
See, now you know it, so you can sing along. Baruch Hu,
Baruch Hu,
dear one,
dear one,
Shekhinah,
Shekhinah,
holy name.
holy name.
When I call on the light of my
soul, I come home.
Baruch Hu,
Baruch Hu, dear one,
Shekhinah,
Shekhinah,
holy name.
holy name. When I call on the light of my soul, I come home.
Please rise as you're able for the Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Leolam Vahed.
Baruch Adonai Mevorach Leolam Vaed. Please have a seat. Baruch atah Adonai, our God, sovereign of time and space, whose word brings the evening dusk, whose wisdom opens the gates of dawn, whose understanding changes the day's divisions, whose will sets the succession of seasons and arranges the stars in their places in the sky, who creates day and night, who rolls light before darkness and darkness from light, the caret in the Hebrew. Umavir yom umevir laila, umavdir ben yom uben laila, Adonai tzvaot shemo, El chai v'kayam, tamid yimloch aleinu leolam vaed. Baruch atah Adonai, Amari v'aravim. Page 40. Ahavat olam. Olam is this interesting word that means both eternity, it means all. It means both eternity and it means the world. So, Ahavat olam, it means timeless love. It could also mean love of the world. Ahavat olam, Bet Israel, Amcha avta,
Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadeta.
Al ken Adonai Eloheinu, v'shachveinu v'kumeinu, nasiach bechukecha, v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha, u'v'mitzvotecha, me'od.
41. Please join together for the Shema. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'beitecha u'v'lechtecha v'derech u'v'shachbecha u'v'kumecha u'kshartam lehot al yadecha v'ayu letotafo b'eineinecha u'ktavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'v'hisharecha. Adonai Elohechem emet.
Page 44. There's a flow from the blessing for creation of the evenings, the blessing for love and revelation, right? So it goes from the general world to the specific Jewish people, to our relationship with our God, and the consequence of our relationship with the God is our obligations back to God. And that leads us to on page 44, the blessing for redemption, that through this will flow redemption for us. ומלכותו ורצון קיבלו עליהם, משה ומרים ובני ישראל, לחנו שירה בשמחה רבה, ואמרו כולם, מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף פלא, נורא תהילות אוסף פלא, מלכותך ראו בניך, מוקי הים לפני משה, זה לי אמרו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך, אדוני ימלוך, לעולם ועד. ונאמר כנר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב, וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני גאי ישראל. Allow us, Adonai our God, to sleep peacefully. Ashkirenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom,
Shalom.
ועמיתנו מלכנו לחיים. ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך, ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך.
Peace comes to us in the recognition that when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, when we recognize that we cannot control everything, redemption can be achieved. The central image in this prayer is the Sukkah of peace. The Sukkah is a fragile structure open to the elements. Peace is pictured not as a temple solidly built, gilded, perhaps ornate, but rather as created out of the most fragmentary of materials, leaving us vulnerable and at risk.
At the carrots. Ushmor tzedkeinu go'im l'chaim u'shalom ata ve'ad olam ufros aleinu sukat shelomecha baruch ata Adonai הפורס סוכת שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל ועל ירושלים.
Please rise for Vishamru on page 46.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם וביום השביעי שבת וינפש שבת וינפש שבת וינפש ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה ועמד יברח חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכנו ויומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בגלה בגלה ובזמן קריב במהרו אמן יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם לעולמי עלמיה יתברך וישתבח ויפאר ויפרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי לקודשה ברכו לעילה מן כה ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן בעלמה במהרו amen. The Amidah begins on page 47. We will recite it silently to ourselves in whatever it is that we do when we pray in the Hebrew or in the English or in the meditations and the wanderings of our mind, beginning on page 47. We're going to do our symbolic repetition of the Amida. Please do rise. ויחולו השמיים והארץ וכל צבאם ויחל אלוהים ביום השביעי מלאכתו אשר עשה וישפוט ביום השביעי מכל מלאכתו אשר עשה ויברך אלוהים את יום השביעי ויקדש אותו, כי בו שבת מכל מלאכתו, אשר ברא אלוהים לעשות. ברוך אתה אדוני, אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, אלוהי אברהם, אלוהי יצחק, ואלוהי יעקב, אלוהי שרה, אלוהי רבקה, אלוהי רחל ואלוהי לאה, האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, קונה שמיים וארץ. Have a seat. מגן אבות בדברו, מחיי מתים במאמרו, האל הקדוש שאין כמוהו, המניח לעמו ביום שבת קודשו, כי בם רצה להניח להם, כי בם רצה להניח להם, לפניו נעבוד ביראה ופחד, ונודה לשמוע בכל יום תמיד מעון הברכות. אל ההודות אדון השלום, מקדש השבת ומברך שביעי, ומניח בקדושה לעמד ושני עונג, זכר למעשה, למעשה בראשית. אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, רצה במנוחתנו, קדשנו במצוותיך, ותן חלקנו בתורתך, סבנו משובך, ושמחנו בישועתך, ותאר ליבנו לעבדך באמת, והנחילנו אדוני אלוהינו באהבה ורצון, שבת קודשך וינוחו בה ישראל, מקדשי שמך. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה.
אמן.
בעלמא דברי חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, מגלה וזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם ולעולמי עלמיא יתברך. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שבי דקודשה בריחו לאלה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן. תתקבל צלות הון ובאות הון דכל ישראל קודם אבו ונבישמעיה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו amen. We'll just go into this key and go with that last final pair of lines on page 54. עושה שלום במרומיו ויעשה שלום עלינו
turn now to Kiddush on page 55. For those who are joining us from home, if you have wine or grape juice, please join us. Savri, with your
L'chaim.
permission. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitsham mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kadsho b'yavav ratzon inchi lanu zikaron l'maseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila l'mikra'ei kodesh zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim kivanu v'acharta ve'otanu kidashta mikami v'shabbat kodshecha v'yavav v'ratzon inchatanu Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat.
Amen.
Chaim.
L'chaim.
Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. We give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together as our joyful prayer is said. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
As we are standing, remain standing on page 56. It is for us to praise the ruler of all, to acclaim the Creator, who has made us specifically like all the other peoples and placed our fate among all of them. Aleinu leshabeach ladon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוצר הארץ, מושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגויי מרומים. הוא אלוהינו, אין עוד, אמת מלכנו, את זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום בהשבות אל לבביך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד. על כן נקבל לך אדוני אלוהינו נראה. ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. Last two lines. ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד, ושמו אחד. Please have a seat. It's at this point in the service that we expand our community to involve to include the entire community of B'nai Tikva and the losses and dear ones that have passed within our entire community. We remember in our community this week Howard Levy, Ida Rosengard, Sarah Ween, Edward Schoenig, Lillian Tandler, James Woolner, Rita Benton, Richard Harris, Joseph Steinberg, Benjamin Brooks, Joseph Lappin, Alfred Braverman, Lois Chaitman, Hyman Fishman, Isaac Ogans, Sidney Littman, Dave Wolfert, Dorothy Clayton, Celia Greenberg, Israel Stein, Marshall Stein, Charlotte Walburst, and James Woolner. Are there other names that we should include? Please rise if you are observing a yard site in mourning, or if it is your practice to recite mourner's practice on page 58. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה.
Amen.
בעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי. בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל. בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא. ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו. לאלה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומה, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל והכל שתבל, ואמרו
Amen.
Should I stay up here and wait?
Yasher Koach to Rabbi Feld and Rabbi Schreiber for your davening and teaching tonight. Rabbi Schreiber, on this occasion of your last Shabbat as B'nai Tikva's intern, we wish to present you with a gift from the congregation, a natural wooden hand-painted yad to guide you through your path of Torah. With gratitude to Rabbi Naomi Levy for her framework, we offer you this blessing. Today, Rabbi, you are setting out on a new sacred path. You have left your indelible imprint on our community. You've inspired us, taught us, rejoiced with us, and mourned with us. You've coaxed our voices into new melodies, new harmonies, and new heights. You've cajoled our minds into recognizing and honoring the voice of our bodies. You've shared teachings that will continue to resonate in our minds and hearts. We cannot begin to imagine the sacrifices you have made on our behalf, especially the past 2 months. We are so grateful for your striving to pack a lifetime of learning and leading into a tiny year of a part-time internship. You've been both student and teacher. We thank you for the wisdom you've spread, for your listening ear, your compassionate heart, and so many words of Torah. We thank you for your patience in challenging times and your forgiveness when I caused you pain. Thank you for all the ways you've blessed us. be okay, I promise. Give me a minute. Oy. May God bless you and your family with health and strength. May God shine on you and through you so that your teachings illuminate all you touch. May God watch over you and shield you from harm, blessing the choices you make and the path you take with much success and contentment. May you continue to be a blessing to the world, and may blessings surround you now and always. And we all say, Amen.
Thank you.
Now the mundane Shabbat morning services begin tomorrow at 10 a.m. The office will be closed Monday and Tuesday for the holiday. Thank you and Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you all.
Wait. You're not getting off that easy. You spoke in your beautiful Devar about Balaam needing to see the people and experience the community, and the plan shifts, and he needs to throw out the old plan and react to what's happening in the moment. I'm going to tell a story which I don't think anyone here has heard before. In our 4th year of rabbinical school goes on a cycle of learning to make sure that everyone gets everything. And our 4th year was the year when we were learning the most painfully misogynistic texts. And Rabbi Schreiber was my Talmud chavrusa and my chavrusa for Nevi'im. And so we were studying together for 2 different classes that year. And Talmud was particularly hard that year, and it was taking a subject that I loved and just destroying that love every day. But there's a lot to get through, and so we would have to kind of plow through the material to get through what we needed to do in class. And we finally, in the margins of the text one day, found a single sentence that was generous and kind to women. And Rabbi Schreiber saw tears welling up in my eyes, and I said, okay, so now we're going on. He said, stop. Take a moment. Take this in. You have such a generous heart and such an ability to know when to throw the plan away and be with a person in the moment. And that is a gift you have shared with me and with this community over and over again. As you mentioned before, there's so much going on behind the scenes that people don't get to see. That means that things work well for the parts people do get to see. You have been a true partner both out here and behind the scenes, and you have given over and above what anyone could have asked. I could not have asked for better in a partner or friend, and I'm so grateful for you, and I'm going to miss you.
I feel like I've been saying what I have to say the entire service, so I'm going to spare you. Because you also know extemporaneous comments always take the longest. Let's end on a joyous note. Page 73, Shalom Aleichem. Let's do this. Is going to be Elaine's favorite tune, my favorite tune.
Baruch Hu,
Shabbos.
Good Shabbos.
Let's go have some nosh. Goodbye to all the folks online. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.